Hello and welcome to Fully Charged. Now this is a little bit of an update about the Tesla Powerwall and the solar panels that I have in my house. Now we did a program about this a while ago. It's been very popular and it's really worth, I've been waiting to do an update when there's something is changed and we know more about it. Okay, so this is going to be as quick an explanation as I can possibly do because it is a bit complicated. I drive a Tesla Model 3, as you know. Before that I had a Tesla Model S. That means that you have a referral code, and if people use your referral code when they buy a Tesla or lease a Tesla, they get a reduction on the cost of that, and in return Tesla give me, or whoever owns the Tesla, certain benefits. They don't give you money. Tesla don't give anyone money. You get things like free supercharging or free autopilot update to your car, or the different things like that. And eventually through my referral code, enough people bought Teslas that Tesla rang up about a year and a half ago to tell me I've got a Powerwall for free. So I was really thrilled. I rang up the installers who did all my wiring and did the solar panels and the original Powerwall, Joju Solar. And I said, I've got a free Powerwall, can I put it in? And they said, yeah. And then Western Power Distributors got in touch. So that's the people who distribute the electricity in the local grid around this area. And they said, you can't do that. The only way I could do it was to have a 3-phase upgrade, to install 3-phase, which is what you would have generally in an industrial unit, not in a house. Although lots of houses are being built now with 3-phase already connected. And in other European countries, people have 3-phase as normal. Anyway, it's quite unusual in this country. So I went, fine, let's do 3-phase. Oh my God, it's going to cost a fortune. It was not cheap. But that will explain the previous episode we did about the JCB electric digger. That's why I had to dig a trench to lay in the cable so that we could have 3-phase connected to the house. It was a new cable that was installed. Eventually it was connected, and now it's been switched on for the first time. And thank goodness it works. So we've got lights in the house, we've got 3-phase coming in, we've got new chargers, all sorts of other things, which I'll explain later on. So that's how I got to this point. So yes, I was given a free battery by Tesla, but my goodness, that was the most expensive free gift I've ever been given. So Chris, it's been a while since we both stood in this garage talking about my original Powerwall, which has been brilliant. It hasn't gone wrong. It's done what it's meant to do, which is very encouraging. But for a start, I want to thank you for working out how on earth to do all this, because this is an absolute monster. It's turned into a monster project, hasn't it?
What happens when we look to do a Tesla Powerwall installation is that we'll make an application to the local grid operator to see if the network is up to hosting this new equipment. And 99 times out of 100, the answer is yes, absolutely fine.
Right.
In your case, you are the one in 100 where actually some kind of reinforcement was required in order to host all of this.
But I think it's up to 11 kilowatts of solar I can now install, because the system can now deal with that kind of power, which is really good.
Yeah, and that's the advantage of upgrading the supply into the property to be able to take more power. The other important change that's taken place there is that your original supply was what's called a single-phase supply, which essentially means that there's one wire running into the property. You're now on a 3-phase supply, which essentially put three live wires. That obviously increases the capacity of what you can do.
Because with the Zappy charger, that's now a 22 kilowatt charger, which there's no way you could have that on a single phase.
Exactly, and so the 3-phase supply that you've got coming in has also allowed you to upgrade the electric vehicle charger, the Zappy charger, up to a 3-phase device, which will allow you to charge the cars even faster than you could before.
So I just want to mention that the Tesla, this is called the signature Powerwall, and that's what it's called. And on the Tesla website, it's signed by Elon Musk. He doesn't like me.
He's not done it, has he?
It's personal, I think. I'm taking it as a personal affront. He didn't want to sign mine. But then, so what we've got now in total storage is somewhere around 26 kilowatt hours, is that right? So 13, are they 13?
Yep, so they're 13.4 kilowatt hours each, so you're now up to 26.8 kilowatt hours of storage capacity. And I think it's worth relating that, I suppose, to the size of the solar PV system that you have here. So you've got a 5.5 kilowatt solar PV system.
Yeah.
In the middle of summer, on average, that would be producing about 27.5 kilowatt hours per day.
So I've had a lot of mid-30s.
Yep.
Last year in particular.
And certainly on a sunny day you would have
you're
beyond that, but the average summer day would completely fill both of them. I think here now we're talking November time, middle of winter. I think the solar's probably only going to produce enough to sort of half fill one Powerwall, and that's really to do with the seasonal variability of solar in the UK. Obviously, some of your viewers in America and Australia are going to have a lot more even supply. The way we've sort of designed this system is essentially to tier up where the solar should go. So when you're producing solar, the first place it goes is into the Tesla Powerwall, and it fills those up. Once they're completely full, then any excess will go into the Zappi car charger, and then directly into your car. And then if the Zappi is not plugged in, or if the car is full, then any excess solar, instead of going back to the grid, is actually dumped into your hot water tank through what's called an eddy device, also made by the same people that make Zappi, and sort of working in very much the same way. So what you're really ensuring there is that of all the solar that you generate, you're not wasting anyway. You're really not spilling anything back to the grid at all, and you're getting the most usage you possibly can out of the solar that you've got on your roof.
Because I think it's worth pointing out that it's quite an unusual thing in the UK to have three-phase connection to a house.
If you look at the wires running down the street, they are three phases.
Right.
If you go to somewhere like Germany, they will tap off all three phases into every single home.
Right.
Whereas in the UK, we just pick one at random and wire it into a house.
Right.
And so it will go phase one on this house, phase two on the next house, and so on down the street.
There's certainly a lot of talk about new build houses now having three-phase as standard. I mean, I've certainly been reading things about that it's going to become more common here.
Yeah, I think it's likely to become more common, and I think certainly the desire to charge electric vehicles quickly is probably going to drive more three-phase supplies going into new build properties in coming years. For existing properties, obviously, they function just fine on single phase. So I don't want your viewers to think, I've got to upgrade my house to three phases, because that's just not a normal thing.
No, that is not normal. So I mean, you certainly can have we did for 3 years a Powerwall on a single phase lot with solar. The big difference, I think, which is what a lot of people asked about when we did the first episode, is what happens if there's a power cut and you've got a full battery? And the answer then was you can't do anything. And we've experienced that. In the time we've had that battery, we've probably had 2 or 3 power cuts, and we have no power. And yet I know the battery has maybe got 10, 12 kilowatt hours of juice in it, but we can't use it. So now we can.
Yep. So I think that's something that Tesla realised, is that, and it certainly came out very clearly on the comment section of the last video that we did with you, was you've got a full battery in your house and you can't discharge it when it's a power cut. That's kind of nuts. The idea that you would put in a device to ride through a power cut when in the UK we get maybe 5 minutes of power cuts a year.
It's not a big thing
that
here.
Doesn't make sense. But if you've got a battery in your house that you're using to store solar, then why wouldn't you incorporate that functionality to allow you to ride through a power cut as well? What Tesla have now done is they've brought out what's called the backup gateway, which is a device that does allow you to run and off your batteries when there is a power cut. Now, the reason behind that is again to do with the electrical regulations within the UK. Broadly, what the grid would say is, if there is a power cut on the grid, our guys need to go and work on those wires, and we can't have people's solar panels and people's batteries in their homes potentially making that grid live while people are working on it. Most solar householders will know this, that when there's a power cut, their solar inverter will turn off. And historically, the batteries would also have to turn off as well. The way that they get around this is the backup gateway, and that is constantly monitoring the voltage on the grid. And if it detects that drops out of range or drops to zero, then there's a relay in there that physically disconnects the whole house from the grid. And once you've got that physical disconnection of your property from anything that's going on out grid side, then you are allowed to run off these batteries behind that switch.
So Mark, now you're the genius who's actually put this system in. I've been watching you with enormous admiration because I don't know how you've managed to work it all out, because it's pretty complicated, but I'm really impressed with what you've done. But what we're going to try and do now is actually test out what happens when there's a power cut.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll disconnect this switch here.
Yeah.
We'll simulate that we're going to lose the connection from the grid, and then hopefully behind us here we'll see the lights. They may flicker, they may not. Hopefully they will obviously remain lit, and then it will be on back on.
So we're going to try it out now.
Here we go.
Quite nervous.
And off. Takes a few seconds.
Right.
You can hear the switch clicking in.
It's clicking in.
And we go. And it should start to operate in a second.
We've got a flash then.
See a flicker.
There.
And we're on. We have backup from our Tesla backup.
So it's quite interesting because that's the first time I've seen it. So it does go, effectively, we would probably lose the lights for a couple of seconds in the house, but then it would all come back on.
That's right.
So now we're running off the batteries.
Solely off the battery.
Wow, that is amazing, isn't it? That is amazing. Wow. I think I had in my mind, you have to have a backup gateway, and I imagined it would be this size, like the hub. It would be this tiny little switch in the fuse box. I didn't realise it's quite a big chunky thing.
It's quite a big chunky thing. I think they've done something very cute there by making it look like a mini Powerwall, but obviously you have to take the whole electricity supply through your house, through here, in and out again, and through that switch. So there is some quite hefty electronics within the gateway, as well as all the sort of smart control and operation of the batteries that it does as well. You can set the Tesla Powerwalls to charge up with cheap nighttime electricity. So if you're on a tariff where you pay more in the day than you do at night, which is very, very common for electric vehicle owners, then you can top up your batteries with cheap nighttime electricity. Obviously you don't want to fill your batteries up with cheap nighttime electricity because you won't be able to get the next day's solar in. So what the gateway does is it actually makes a prediction of how much solar it is expecting to put in tomorrow.
I didn't know that. Wow.
And tops up the rest with the cheap nighttime electricity, leaving enough space for what it expects to come along tomorrow.
That is cleverer than me.
Yeah. So obviously it's not super accurate. It's not taking in a weather forecast, for example, but it can essentially monitor what it is doing roughly at that time of year to get to a pretty good approximation.
So it's a big step up then. That's not just a big switch that means I can have electricity and power cut. It's much more intelligent than that.
Yeah, so that's really less to do with the gateway and actually more to do with the firmware, the software that the gateway is running. So anyone with an existing gateway can set their Powerwall to run in that mode.
Right. Once I understood how to use it, once I was used to using the software, that my aim was to never use grid power between 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock at night. To manage it so that even in the winter, I charge these now with off-peak electricity in the night, so I think they switch about midnight. They charge, but what that means is even in the middle of winter when there's minimal solar, I then try and run the house as much as I can off that, but manage it so that we definitely don't use it at the peak time, which is when electricity is the most expensive and the dirtiest. Yeah, so and that's been an amazing feeling to do that, and that will be easier to do because that's my argument is I'm definitely in a privileged position at the moment to be able to afford to have those and to be able to afford to put this in. But as the prices come down, and more people have batteries, it's a simple argument. If there were 20 million homes with even a 4 kilowatt hour battery, quite a small one, no solar, but they charge them off peak and they use them at the peak, that peak goes down. That's as simple as that. You're leveling out those ridiculous highs and lows, when you realise that top peak is the dirtiest and most expensive electricity we produce. It really makes sense in a big way. And in fact, as we've discussed on many times, we don't get that many power cuts, but when you do get one, if this is the result, it's brilliant.
Absolutely, and if you've got solar PV, then why not?
when the feed-in tariffs were in place, you were paid the feed-in tariff for what you generated.
Yeah.
So any unit of electricity that you generated, you got paid for.
Even if you used it yourself in the house to boil a kettle.
Yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that was exported back to the grid, you got paid 5 pence per kilowatt hour for, as a flat rate. And in most cases, it wasn't even measured. They just said, well, half your electricity is going back to the grid.
Right.
And you get 5p for
Right.
that. Since the removal of the feed-in tariff, that export payment has also disappeared and is going to be replaced with something called the Smart Export Guarantee.
Yeah.
Which will be coming in place 1st of January. And that basically says that different electricity suppliers can offer you different export tariffs.
Right.
And the idea is to sort of create a market between electricity suppliers to take any excess solar that you might spill back to the grid.
Right.
So it's a bit more complicated than just giving everyone a flat 5p.
Yes.
You're actually going to have to shop around and try and find the best deal you can for the electricity that you export.
Right.
You will also need a smart meter to be installed to actually measure that exported electricity accurately.
Right. But then there's a variable one which follows the wholesale electricity price, because that was the thing. I always remember that when I first realised that electricity didn't always cost the same. The wholesale price, and the variations in that go from effectively sometimes negative to really high. And so if you can sell electricity at the peak, particularly if you can buy it when it's cheap.
I think that's perhaps where we're edging towards. So I think the majority of suppliers under the Smart Export Guarantee are going to be offering a flat rate, but I think you will see some of the smaller players doing interesting things around time of day pricing. We're beginning to see people charging different prices at different times of day for importing electricity, and we'll probably also see them doing the same for exporting electricity.
So now on the system we've got now, if say this happened in the middle of a sunny day in the summer and you had a power cut, would the inverter still be running? So we'd still be able to take this solar into...
Absolutely. So the inverter would operate also.
Right.
So the battery would, it would obviously use up a certain amount of energy. And then once it's got to about 30% and the battery, the inverter would then kick in.
I see. Oh, right. So then it would start to either recharge the battery or run the house.
That's right, correct.
I think that's really the next stage for domestic battery evolution, if you like. At the moment, they're there to allow householders to capture their own solar and use it for themselves. The next stage will be for householders to capture the solar and use it for the benefit of the wider grid. And that's only going to be facilitated by having these smart tariffs in place. What people will find difficult is, I think, that the idea that they might get paid 5 or 6p for the electricity that they put out to the grid, but they know that they buy in again at 15
15 or 20,
And people will be looking at that and going, well, why is there that difference? The answer to that is that the 5-6p is the value of the electricity itself. The value of the electricity is it might be produced by a gas-fired power station or an offshore wind turbine or so forth. And the rest of your bill is things like paying for the national grid infrastructure.
The substations, the wires, the pylons.
Paying for the metering, paying for the billing, and obviously the utility profits in there, plus any sorts of green legislation. So at the moment we're seeing all of those costs bundled onto your import price, but obviously you don't get that back when you export to the grid. So that price differential between the price you pay for electricity to import it versus the price you get to export it, that is where the real value of the battery comes in.
So that's all we've got time for this episode of Fully Charged. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learnt how this technology is developing, how it's it's still expensive, it's still being developed, but the Tesla gateway, the backup gateway has only been out since April. This is very new stuff, and all I've got to do really now is make sure that my signature Powerwall, which is what I was told, signature with that word in the title, It's going to have a signature. So thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe to Fully Charged. About 75% of people who watch Fully Charged aren't subscribed, which is brilliant because a lot of people watch it. But you could subscribe, then you won't miss any of our juicy, lumpy, organic goodness that we produce all the time. Please do have a look at the Patreon link that is beneath this video. Let me assure you that the money that we receive from Patreon is not going towards paying for Robert's Powerwall. That's not happening. And please do join us again. And as always, if you have been, thank you for watching. Right, that's it. This is how he signs it. Look at that. That's it. Signature Powerwall. Nice.